Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Inkwell Gamers podcast. Today we are continuing our set 4 review and covering all of the Emerald cards today. So if this is your first time tuning in, we have been basically going through all of the non-vanilla cards and grading them according to how good we think they are in a competitive setting. So if you missed any of our previous episodes, we've already covered Amber and Amethyst at this point. And if you are wanting to know how we grade these cards, you can go back to our very first one, Amber, a couple episodes ago and check out basically the parameters for how we do our set review. And is also a pinned post on our Instagram at the Inkwell Gamers if you just want to go and read it there. So without further ado, we're going to just jump right in. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do this.
All right, so the first one that we have is Cricky. Do you want to take us through that one, Dalton?
Yeah, we have Cricky Lucky Cricket. It is a 5-cost inkable 3/4 that quests for 3 and has Spreading Good Fortune. When you play this character, your other characters get +3 strength this turn. I am going to give this one a B+. I actually think this one's pretty good. It has reasonable stats. It quests for a lot. Most importantly, it is inkable, so it never just kind of gets stuck in your hand. And the one thing that I think that Emerald is really lacking is the ability to challenge the board in a meaningful way when they're behind. And you could have like a Curse Merfolk, a Flynn Rider, and maybe like a Pegasus out, then you play Cricky and suddenly all of your characters trade up into theirs if you were behind. Granted, if you have all those characters out, maybe you're just questing, but I think this is a really good card to help when things aren't necessarily going to plan for you.
Yeah, I give it a B. I think we're finally getting a decent inkable 5-drop. I think the issue that Emerald often faces is that all of the good cards are uninkable and all of the bad ones are in that 5 slot. So this one actually is a decent 5-drop. And I think the fact that it quests for 3 also poses a pretty good threat. And like you said, I mean, giving all of the other characters, I like that it's not just chosen character, because I feel like that's often where we see a lot of the text that are similar abilities that get given is you have to choose a character. So I like that it kind of gives all of the ones that, and I think it just is pretty good. I know that we were trying to see if we could fit this into my deck, but there are too many good ones that have come out in this set that we're going to talk about today. And this one unfortunately didn't make the cut, but maybe in the future I have to do some rearranging after Atlanta, so we'll see. But yeah, pretty good. All right, next we have one of my favorite cards of this set, Diablo Devoted Herald. It is an uninkable 3-drop, 2/2, quests for 1. To shift, you could also shift it, and you would discard an action card, so that new mechanic that we're seeing this set. It has evasive, and then it also has the ability circle far and wide. During each opponent's turn, whenever they draw a card while this character is exerted, you may draw a card. I had the pleasure of being able to put the one that we opened in my deck for a win-a-box tournament that we went to, and when I had it out, it did pretty good things for me, especially playing against the Emerald Amethyst that does a lot of things that draw cards too. It's quite nice that not only do I get to draw a card when it's the beginning of this turn if I've quested with it, but if they do any extra card draw, or even Amber when they heal with Rapunzel or something, I get to draw from that too. It's pretty good. So I gave it an S.
I think I'm going to give it an S too. The fact that it is an evasive threat means that it is not easily challengeable, so you can sing songs with it, or you can just quest with it. And most other decks have pretty good ways to draw cards, so whether that is Flaversham and Popsicle stuff, you get to draw cards when they do that. Whether it's Rabbit Bounce stuff, you get to draw cards for that too. Even A Whole New World, if they wanted to play that. But you're getting 7 cards. I don't know if you really need 7 more, but That's also an advantage this Diablo has. It's really strong.
Yeah, I definitely think that Emerald desperately needs more card draw. We have Prince John, which is, I feel like, the best that we currently play with, but this is just another perfect addition to that. And also, too, I feel like it's one of those cards where if it has a shift ability, but it's still good enough to not even need shifted, which is a target that we're going to talk about next that I don't think we even need to play Devoted Herald, and that is Diablo Maleficent's Spy. So how about you take us through that one?
Alright, Diablo Maleficent Spy. 1 cost thinkable 1/2, quest for 1 with Scout Ahead. When you play this character, you may look at each opponent's hand. I'm just going to give this card like a C-. I think that looking at your opponent's hand a lot of the times is kind of overrated. We already have the 2 cost Ursula that does that with some upside. And just spending 1 ink for a 1/2 that doesn't have any other meaningful impact. Like, I know we grade a 1/2 from Amethyst the Broom pretty decently.
Yeah, but that ability was...
Yeah, that ability is just so much better. You can turn that card into a new card when it gets banished. So this just fails in comparison. It's just not... I don't think it's going to see any play.
Yeah, I feel like there's so many other better 1-drops in Emerald that are getting play right now that this one just can't compete with the others, you know?
And
like,
we'll definitely talk about one later.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, we have Ursula Deceiver that literally gets played the next turn, and not only do you get to look at the hand, but you also get to potentially make them discard. So this one is not really that needed. So I gave it a C. All right, so next we have Gunther Interior Designer. It is an inkable 4-drop, 3/3, quests for 2, and has Sad-Eyed Puppy. When this character is challenged and banished, each opponent chooses one of their characters and returns that card to their hand. I gave this one a B-. I like that it quests for 2, so it poses a good threat. And it also bounces a character. Granted, they get to choose, so they're probably going to choose the one that isn't as impactful to them. But nonetheless, it still takes away their board presence without needing to challenge. So I like that aspect of it. I do wish you still got to choose, similarly to the Ruby Prince Eric, where if it banishes a character, you also get to choose another one to banish. I wish you got to choose, but I guess beggars can't be choosers.
Yeah, I'm gonna give this one like a C-. I think it's probably just worse than the Hans from the first set. It has like the exact same stats except for that one quest for 1 more. And I think a lot of the time when your opponent gets to choose when they bounce their character and what they're bouncing, and I say they get to choose when because they don't have to banish this if they don't want to. We see a lot of times from the Amethyst Madam Mims that that's not always a downside. So they could challenge a character with this, banish that character, and then the only character they have left is like a goat or a rabbit, and then they're still just getting value out of that. Or maybe they challenge, I don't know, with like their Maui, then they get to replay their Medusa on something else. So I don't really like this one. I can see a lot of downside to it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right, next we have Hades, Double Dealer. 4 cost inkable character, 3/3, quest for 1 with, here's the trade-off. Banish one of your other characters, play a character with the same name as the banished character for free. For free. That is pretty sweet. However, I am going to give this card a D. It kind of reminds me of like the Mickey Mouse from last set.
The Trumpeter.
The Trumpeter. Yeah, Trumpeter.
It's probably Trumpeter. I think I just tried to get fancy there for some
the
reason.
Trumpeter.
I'm a connoisseur with the trumpet.
You...
I don't know. We should probably cut that, but I'll probably leave it in anyway.
So that one you had to pay 2 ink in order to use its ability, whereas this one you just have to tap and it's inkable and it's better statted. That being said, you have to have a character in play with the same name as a character in your hand, and that's just not going to be the case all the time. And even if it is the case, it's not like guaranteed that you're getting a lot of value from it. Like, I think your deck currently, the way it's constructed, you might be able to banish a 1 cost Robin Hood to put in the 5 cost Robin Hood, and that's not great, but you could have already shifted that this turn or just played it. Same thing with
Pegasus.
Yeah. And you need something super impactful, so maybe there's enough Ursulas now with Ursula Power Hungry and the Deep Sea Witch from this set, and both the cheaper Ursulas from last set.
Yeah.
But that is kind of the only card that I think of currently that has good cheap characters and good expensive characters to kind of bounce in and out of play, and it's just going to be too inconsistent.
Yeah, I agree. I gave it a C, but honestly, I think I should probably bump it down. I just feel like there aren't any expensive shift characters where even their shift cost is too far after this. Even the new Ursula that we talked about, the shift's 5. So even if you play this on turn 4, by turn 5, if you do it, I mean, you would have already been able to shift it anyway on turn 5. So I feel like it's just not very efficient. I mean, if we see cards later that come out in which they're just gigantic and their shift might be like 8 or something, then yeah, that would make sense. But I also think that we don't have a lot of shift characters in which their smaller versions are even really getting played right now either. We would have to have a really powerful shift with also a playable little guy, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's why I think Ursula is kind of the one that you could do, because even the 2 cost Ursula, Deceiver, like that one kind of just gives you value when it comes into play a lot of the time, so getting rid of that isn't that big of a cost to put Power Hungry or the Sea Witch into play.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about it. Doesn't have to even be a shift. It could be Power Hungry.
Yeah, I mean, it could be anything as long as it's the same name, but like you need multiple cheap characters and expensive characters with the same name that are good in order for this to be consistent enough to work, I think. And like I said, Ursula's the only one that has that in green and another color, so that's why I'm not super high on it currently.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's too conditional for sure. But man, can you imagine doing Power Hungry on turn 5?
I mean, it'd be
I
sick.
love that. I love that actually. But nonetheless, not good at this moment. All right, next we have Hey Bumbling Rooster. Inkable 3-drop, 2/3, quest for 2, and has Fatten You Up. When you play this character, if an opponent has more cards in their inkwell than you, you may put the top card of your deck into your inkwell face down and exerted. I gave this one a C. I think the questing for 2 does pose a decent threat, but I don't think the likelihood of this happening will be consistent enough for the card to work. Yes, we have essentially like 2 decks in the meta right now that are playing Sapphire. You have Steel Sapphire and Sapphire Ruby, but you can't be dependent upon what your opponent is playing for this card to be good. And if you're not playing against a Sapphire player, chances are you're not going to have more ink than them when this comes out. Unless you have like a really bad starting hand, but hopefully the mulligan was in your favor.
Yeah, so I like this card. I'm going to give it like a B minus. And here is why. So the Sapphire decks are pretty good and pretty popular. So if they play one Jump Ahead on turn 2, or a Mickey on turn 3, or even a Quill on turn 3, if you're on the draw, you'll always get this ability on turn 3. And it's actually not like the worst static character to just play out on turn 3. Binja is a card that has some niche value sometimes, but it's also just a character that you can play onto the board if you need to because it quests for 2.
But he's also a 3/3.
It's a 2/3.
Is it?
Yeah.
I should know. I have it in my deck.
Yeah.
Oops.
It's an inkable card. They're both 2/3. Those quest for 2, so they're similar in that. But like, even if you're not going against a Sapphire deck, we've talked about how sometimes your deck has a trouble getting up to 5 ink sometimes. So, your opponent has 5 ink, and then you have 4 ink on turn 5 or 6. Then this ability triggers. If you're on the draw and it's turn 4 and your opponent has 4 ink, you can just play this before you ink for the turn and you get that ability. So, I don't think it'll be super inconsistent. It's a good catch-up card, which I think is something Emerald needs. And it's just not the worst character to play by itself, even when it does nothing. See Benja. So that's kind of where I am on it.
Okay. Maybe I'll consider putting this in.
You should.
I should.
All right, next we have Hera, Queen of the Gods. 3-cost inkable 1/3. That quest for 2, it has Ward. She has Protective Goddess. Your character's name Zeus. Gain Ward. And You're a True Hero. Your character's name Hercules. Gain Evasive. I'm just going to give this one a D.
D for me too. I think it's way too niche to apply. And there aren't any good Zeus characters, in my opinion, and only one Hercules character that's potential to get played, and that's in Steel. It's just not good right now.
Yeah, there's like 2 Steel 6-cost Hercules characters that I think are decent or could see play, but they don't need Evasive. That's like, one has Bodyguard, so you don't want it to even have Evasive, and the other one's just like a big character that has Resist and is just challenging characters, so you don't really care if that one has Evasive too much either. It just doesn't, and all the Zeus characters are bad.
And let's face it too, if we do have an Emerald Steel deck that is getting played right now, and they're not even playing the Hercules, so I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't fit the deck's game plan anyway.
Yeah, sweeten a Hercules themed deck probably.
Yep. All right, next we have Jacques, Connoisseur of Climbing. Inkable 3-drop, 1/4, quests for 2, and has Sneaky Idea. When you play this character, chosen opposing character gains Reckless during their next turn. I'm gonna give it a D. I think the stats aren't the greatest, and I don't know. I feel like the whole giving another character Reckless during next turn isn't as impactful enough for me to play, especially we have a lot of good 3-cost characters in Emerald. It's hard to compete with.
I'm going to give this one a C. I think this one could be like pretty good in Emerald Mirrors. Like, let's say you have a Flynn in play and they have a Cursed Merfolk, and then you give their Cursed Merfolk Reckless and it's attacking your Flynn or something. There are definitely situations like that against other aggressive decks where I think it could be useful. And kind of the same thing with Hey Hey is that it just quests for 2 even when its ability is not good. I think its ability is a little more niche, so I don't like it as much as Hey Hey, but I could see this one getting play as 1 or 2 of occasionally. Lyle Tiberius Rourke, that one saw some play last set, and that was an inkable, and it didn't quest for 2. So I think this one could see some French play.
That's fair enough.
All right, next we have Jasmine Desert Warrior, 5-cost uninkable, 3/3, quest for 2 with Cunning Maneuver. When you play this character and whenever she's challenged, each opponent chooses and discards a card. I am, even though this is the Enchanted that we opened,
Yep.
I'm going to give this one like a C-. I think it is probably just worse than Lucifer from previous sets, because when that one came into play, you got the 2 cards automatically a lot of the time. So I just think this is a worse card than that, unfortunately.
I gave it a B-, but probably because I was hoping she was going to be better than what I think she's going to end up being. I had high hopes for her. I think her uninkability as a 5-cost prevents her from being play. I think if she was inkable, it would be a different story, but that's just the weakness of Emerald is uninkable 5-drops, I feel like.
Yep, there's so many.
But I do like that her ability works both as she enters and when she's challenged. So you have the potential to get it done twice, unless it gets Medusa. But, if you have Prince John in play, that's pretty sweet that you also get 2 cards from it. I know it will be later, but, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it definitely has some synergies with how some Emerald decks like to play, which is why I didn't give it a D, but just another 5-cost unequal character just is annoying.
Yeah, it's tough when you have 3 good 5-cost inkable cards that are getting played in that deck right now, so why would I put this one in there? But, nonetheless. All right, next we have Meg, Captivating Cynic. She is an uninkable 3-drop, 3/6, quests for 2, and has Shady Deal. When you play this character, choose and discard a card or banish this character. I don't like this card. Ugh. I don't know. I gave it a C, but I feel like I should give it a D.
I don't know how I feel about this card. I've gone back and forth, kind of. For me, it just kind of depends how many tempo spells outside of the Ruby decks that we have. Like, if you're going against Ruby, Sapphire, this will just get Medusa, whatever, that sucks really bad. But against most other decks, this is going to just be like a pretty big character that quests a lot, and I'm really intrigued by that. It's bigger than everything at its size, and heck, even it's bigger than a lot of 4 and 5 cost characters.
Yeah.
It has the same stats as Robin Hood. It quests for 2, and you can just play it on turn 3. Yeah, there's some card disadvantage, and you can't play it if you don't have any cards in your hand, but I'm kind of intrigued by it.
I feel like Emerald already struggles, or at least me. I do struggle where I get to the point that I don't have that card draw. I run out of cards and I just end up top decking earlier than maybe my opponents. But also, I feel like I don't like cards that if it is something I top deck, I can't play anyway.
Yeah, that's why you didn't like the Madam Mims.
Exactly. I did not like that feeling. So I'm going to drop mine down to a D and just move on.
Yeah, I'm gonna call it a C because I definitely think there could be some potential here, but I recognize that it could also be very bad.
Yeah.
All right, next we have Meg, Liberated One. It is a 5-cost inkable 4/4 that quests for 2 with Ward, and people always do crazy things. Whenever you play a character named Hercules, you may ready this character. If there were good Hercules characters, like multiple of them, I would probably give this like a B. I don't know. It's probably just like a C. What I do like about it is that it has Ward, so you can't really target it with anything. Mm-hmm. And it is inkable, but there's just so many good 5-drops now that I think this one probably falls short of being playable.
I originally gave it a D, but I actually kind of want to bump it up to a C under the hope that if we do see Emerald Steel using this card in the 2 Hercules ones that we just talked about, that it would be like a different type of play style than what the current one is kind of getting designed as. But, I mean, if you follow up with the 6-cost Hercules, and I don't know, I feel like it's just like a good progression between the 2. So I think if someone can configure an Emerald Steel deck around to where it can include these 2 characters and be under a different type of game plan, I guess.
Yeah,
I can see it.
Like a kind of a bigger, less low to the ground Emerald Steel deck. What I really do like about Meg is that normally when you see these characters that have a trigger that make them ready is that they can't exert to quest again.
Yeah.
But she can just keep on questing. So sometimes if you have a cheap Hercules, you could get 4 or 6 lore out of her, and that's really good. And she's on target. I think this one, I'm going to give her a C as well. Like, she could definitely see some play if things fall right.
All right, next we have Panic Immortal Sidekick. And I actually just noticed that the card art connects with the Pain Immortal Sidekick that we're not talking about because it's vanilla, but it actually connects vertically on top of one another instead of side by side like all the other ones we're seeing. And that's pretty cool. I just noticed that. But anyway, it is a inkable 4-drop, 3/3 quests for 2, and has reporting for duty. While this character is exerted, if you have a character named Pain in play, your villain characters can't be challenged. Unfortunately, I gave this one a D. I think the Pain and Panic cards aren't good enough right now, being that they just aren't, I feel like, the best statted. And not only does it rely on a Pain card being in play, but also that you have enough villains in your deck and on the board to make this work. So
yeah, it's kind of like the same thing with Flossom and Jetsam, is that you just need like a ton of these and a bunch of really good ones, and these are probably even worse than Flossom and Jetsam because we've had 2 of those every set. So yeah, these just don't work currently, and I'm just going to give this one a D.
shame, you know.
All right, next we have Pegasus Cloud Racer. It is an inkable 5-cost character, 3/3 quest for 2, shift 3 with evasive, and hop on. When you play this character, if you use shift to play him, your characters gain evasive until the start of your next turn. Wowee, do I like this one. I think this one's an A.
I gave it an A too.
Yeah, this one is really good, partially because of the card we're going to talk about next. But just a 3/3 evasive character that quests for 2 for 5 is not terrible. But the shift ability is extremely good. I know you had some success shifting this past weekend.
Yeah.
And it just makes your characters like Ursula Deceiver of Old not be able to be challenged for a turn after you double sing a song, which is really good. It makes your Curse Merfolks and Flynn's not able to be challenged as well, so you get even more lore out of them. This card is extremely powerful. It can sing We Don't Talk About Bruno or whatever songs you're playing. Yeah, Zeus, it can sing Zeus. So yeah, I love this card.
Yeah, I feel like not only is it good enough on its own, but the shift target is also good, which makes it even better because both of them are really good. But the evasiveness of your other characters it's more powerful than I thought it would be. I got to do it a couple of times this past weekend, and it was pretty nice, I will say. I am glad that we added that for sure. But like I just talked about, the one cost that we're getting ready to talk about is also just as good. Well, not just as good, but it's good. It is Pegasus Gift for Hercules, an inkable 1-drop, 1/1, quests for 1 and has evasive. It's a nice little evasive that I felt like got away with questing quite a bit, and the fact that it has a good shift too, I feel like makes it even more powerful.
Yeah, I mean, it can quest without being challenged a lot of the time. Pascal is like a pretty good 1-drop in the aggressive Amethyst Emerald decks, and that has like the drawback of sometimes it isn't evasive, so you can't really quest with it freely. But this one is always invasive. I'm going to give it an A. It's probably going to be in every reasonably aggressive Emerald Shell, and it might just be in most Emerald Shells going forward. So I'm just going to give it an A.
I like it.
What grade did you give it, Dana?
Oh, I gave it a B, but it probably should be an A. I don't know.
I can see it. All right, next we have Pete, Born to Cheat. It is a 2-cost uninkable 2/3 that quests for 1 with I clobber you. Whenever this character quests while he has 5 strength or more, return chosen character with 2 strength or less to their player's hand. I'm just going to give this one a D. I don't know. I don't like it at all.
Yeah, I gave it a D too. It's uninkable, and it requires another card to pump up its strength in order for this to be good.
Yeah, the one combo that could be fine is like P into Merlin Crab.
Yeah.
But then you don't get the benefit of Merlin Crab, like being able to take out a location or a bigger character right then. So I just think it's just not very good.
It sucks. All right, moving on. We have Prince Philip, Vanquisher of Foes. It is a inkable 9-drop, 6/6, quests for 3, shifts for 6, has evasive, and has swift and sure. When you play this character, banish all opposing damaged characters. Big boy. Quests for a lot. And I still don't think I like it. I gave it a C. I think it's good in theory, but it's just too expensive. And there isn't a good shift target for it. So you would have to wait, theoretically, until you have 9 ink. And I just don't think it's worth the wait. And most Emerald decks don't get up that high anyway.
Yeah, this one's probably locked into like an Emerald Steel deck, and just the way they're constructed right now, you can just never put this card in your deck because oftentimes you don't get past 4, 5, or 6 ink. And the Prince Philip, which is the next card we're going to talk about, is just not a very good shift target. Like, obviously, it's super powerful when it's in play, like a 9-drop should be, but sometimes you'll even just play it and then, like, maybe banish a character, but maybe they just played a character that doesn't have any damage on it, and like a beast or something, then you don't even get to banish the most important character you want to. So it's just like a bad, maleficent, monstrous dragon to me.
Yeah,
So,
I agree.
All right, next we have Prince Philip, Warden of the Woods, 4 cost, uninkable, 3/4, quest for 2, with Shining Beacon. Your other hero characters gain ward. I'm gonna give this one a D as well. It's uninkable. It has okay stats, whatever. Like, these uninkable 4 and 5 cost characters really have to do something super impactful in order to see play. And this one just doesn't do anything impactful. Giving your hero characters ward just is not super relevant.
Yeah, let's be honest. All of the competitive decks that we're seeing in the meta right now are a combination of heroes and villains. You're not going to have a straight hero deck that is getting brought to tournaments and doing well in. And it's going to be a long time before we would even get like a straight hero deck for this one to be good anyway. So D for me.
Yeah, even like there's the Aurora that gives all of your other characters ward without any specific character type. And that one sees no play, and it has a shift line, and it's inkable. So yeah, I just don't see it.
Yeah, I don't like it. All right, next we have the Fates, only 1 eye, inkable 1-drop, 2/1, quest for 1, and has all will be seen. When you play this character, look at the top card of each opponent's deck. I gave it a B, but I think I need to bump it down, honestly. D.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm just going to go straight down to a D, not even a C.
I concur with you. Just so many better 1-drops. You want your 1-drops to have like a shift line, or be questing for 2, or do other things like draw a card at some point.
Instead of just taking a peek.
Yeah, taking a peek. Not as much value as what you think it is.
Yeah.
Alright, so next we have the Muses, Proclaimers of Heroes, 4 cost, inkable, 2/4, quest for 1 with ward, and whenever you play a song, you may return chosen character with 2 strength or less to their player's hand. So I'm going to give this one a B. I think I could see a decent amount of play. I know a lot of people are trying to combo this with the Mother Gothel from the first set, like the 1/6 that returns an action when it comes into play. So you can play a song with this, then you return the song to your hand with Mother Gothel, and then you can replay the song, and then you just like get this endless loop of that one song.
Yeah.
And that's really good with, we don't talk about Bruno because you could have Mother Gothel sing it, but I mean, Mother Gothel is just not that great of a card. So anyway, regardless.
I don't think even, yeah, I think regardless of whether Mother Gothel gets played with this or not, I still think it's a decent one even without. I gave it a B too. I think there aren't many good 4-drops in Emerald right now, so it doesn't really have much competition. I mean, you have Friar Tuck, but that's kind of falling off anyway. And so this would be a nice replacement of that, because I know I personally didn't really like Friar Tuck in my 4 slot. But I think having Ward also helps it not get Medusa'd. So, I don't know. I like it.
Yeah, it is definitely more tempo than what Friar Tuck is. So, assuming you have enough songs to make it good, I like it. Like I said, a B.
Yeah, for sure.
Alright, next we have Zeus, Mr. Lightning Bolts, 3 cost, inkable, 0/5, quest for 2 with target practice. When this character challenges another character, he gets plus strength equal to the strength of chosen character this turn. So when he quests, it doesn't even have to be the character that he's challenging, but so if there's a character on your side or their side that has 5 or 6 strength, it could be like a 5/5. That being said, I'm probably just going to give this one a C. It's too easy to banish if he's exerted, so you can't really quest with it freely, and most of your Emerald characters aren't that big, so you're relying on their bigger characters to get a strength boost, and then it probably just dies to their bigger character a lot of the time. So yeah, I don't like this card that much.
I give it a C as well. I just feel like it's another 3-drop competing in that slot that already has more powerful ones, and like you said, you can't really, it doesn't trade if you're the one that's exerted and not challenging. So yeah, I don't like it. All right, next we are moving on from our characters and going into our actions, items, and locations. So we are going to start with Dodge. It is a 2-cost inkable action where you get to choose a character that gains ward and evasive until the start of your next turn. C, but I feel like it should be a D. It's inkable. I just don't think it's worth
a card.
It's not worth a card. D. I'll bump it down.
Same. You don't have to go into it any further, honestly.
Fair.
Alright, next we have Make a Potion, 2-cost uninkable action. As choose one, banish chosen item, or deal 2 damage to chosen damaged character. I'm gonna give this one a C-. I think it has some niche applications, maybe, and it has a little bit of versatility. The issue with it is that neither side, the banish chosen item for 2 ink, isn't amazing, although like you could just play Benja or Wildcat or something and have like an actual body, and the deal 2 damage to chosen damaged character for 2 ink is just really inefficient and really situational. But hey, I guess if you need both options, you have it.
I gave it a D. I just think it's uninkable, it's unrepeatable, and with that second of the choose one that's dealing damage to a damaged character is just too conditional. It's not going to be relevant. So D for me. All right, next we have Under the Sea, an uninkable 8-cost song that you can use the Sing Together ability on, so you can use more than just one character. And it puts all opposing characters with a strength of 2 or less on the bottom of their player's decks in any order. I gave it a B. I mean, Emerald does tend to struggle with high uninkables. I feel like all of our true good ones are uninkable. But despite that and its high cost, I feel like the Sing Together doesn't cause me to stray away from it to maybe consider having a 2 of. I think it's going to be better in a Lemon Lime deck when you have singers. But I think I don't see this going into like an Emerald Steel. I feel like it would have to be a Amber Emerald.
Yeah, so I like Amber Emerald with this because Kita is a really good combo with it. The shift one that gives everything -3 strength.
Yeah.
So I like that. What I found out this past weekend is that Sisu, the Shift Sisu, is an extremely powerful card and it has a similar ability where you just put all characters with 2 strength or less, you banish them all. So this probably isn't as good as Sisu because that card can shift, it quests, but this is one-sided just like Sisu. It costs 8, it's uninkable just like Sisu, and you could actually just play it for no ink sometimes because of the Sing Together ability. So I'm going to give this one like a B+. I think this one can definitely see play. So yeah, that it's very interesting to me.
Yeah, for sure.
Alright, so next we have Ursula's Trickery. 1 cost, uninkable action. Each opponent may choose and discard a card. For each opponent who doesn't, you draw a card. I am going to give this one a D. The issue with this card is that your opponent gets to choose, so...
this is like that Amber one that we talked about where you said
Yeah.
it's a bait. Where instead of drawing a card, you gain lore.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you have Prince John out, obviously they're not going to discard a card. You can draw a card with it. It's uninkable, so just 1 cost uninkable cards that just draw a card just aren't that good. Like for example, Sapphire just has a bunch of cards that are 1 cost inkables that draw a card, and sometimes your opponent is just going to discard a card that they might not want just so you don't draw a card when you're top decking late in the game. So yeah, I don't like this card at all.
Yeah, D for me. All right, next we have We Don't Talk About Bruno, an inkable 5 cost song that returns chosen character to their player's hand. Then that player discards a card at random. I personally play this card and I love it. I did give it a B though. But it's inkable and it can be sung by a few 5 costs that are now in the deck, and especially now that we have 2 shifts. We have the Robin Hood and the Pegasus, that you could even sing it earlier than on your 6th turn, but it can also be used with Prince John too. So I think that that's pretty good because you get to draw a card from it, and I found it's definitely better in the late game too when your opponent is potentially top decking, so they might not have anything in their hand and you basically bounce the 1 character to their hand and that's the only one they have that they have to discard. So it's kind of an indirect removal, so I like it.
Yeah. So the problem with bounce spells like Mother Knows Best is that it's usually just tempo, but it's like card disadvantage because like you're using your card just to make their card go back to their hand. Well, they still have access to that card the next turn. This one makes it so they have to discard a card, so you end up being card neutral. But so how this one actually I feel like plays out a lot of the time is that it's just like an inkable Dragonfire, because you're 1-for-1ing them every time unless you have like a Prince John out, so you're at parity. When it's not great or you have it early, you can just ink it, unlike Dragonfire, and sometimes you just get to sing it, and that I feel like is probably just a huge blowout. So yeah, I like this card a lot. I'm gonna give it like an A-.
Nice.
Next one we have Hidden Ink Caster. One of the more interesting cards in the set, I think, is a 2 cost uninkable item with fresh ink. When you play this item, draw a card, and Unexpected Treasure. All cards in your hand count as having inkable. All your cards that were once really bad because they're not inkable, now they can be inked.
Yeah.
What do you think, Dana?
Oh, I struggled with this one. I gave it a C. I think it sounds good in theory because Emerald does struggle with uninkables, like we've said this entire episode. But I'm not sure if this will see play because I feel like it's just... I don't know. It's uninkable and it's competing in the 2 slot. That does have quite a bit of good 2-drops as it is. But also, I feel like people will anticipate Emerald decks trying to do this and they'll like tech for it. I don't know.
So my issue with this card is that if you're playing it, then presumably you're playing a much higher uninkable count than normal. And if you just don't draw this card by turn 2, then your deck just is going to have a really hard time functioning because you just
Yeah.
have so many uninkables. So I think that's one issue with it. Another issue is that you usually want your 2-cost cards to progress your board in some way, and this doesn't do that. So yeah, I'm gonna give it a C. Like, someone could probably do something really powerful with this card in like an item shell because it gets banished to Flaversham, which makes any item kind of just like a free roll because it's Flaversham's so good. But I don't think it's gonna see much play currently. If it does, it'll probably do something really annoying though. Honestly, if it sees play, it's gonna be probably one of the cards in the format that I wish was not in the format.
Yeah. Next, we have Signed Contract, an inkable 2-drop item that has fine print. Whenever an opponent plays a song, you may draw a card. I gave it a D because I think it's hard to justify playing a card that isn't consistent and relies on what your opponent does. It needs to be, I think, something that you can control.
Yep, I think Emerald wants to be proactive. This is more reactive, and sometimes they just won't ever play a song into this if they can help it. So some decks don't really play that many songs, so you wouldn't get any value out of it anyway.
Yep.
And the one deck that plays like a lot of songs mitigates the card draw from this by just playing a whole new world and making you discard your hand anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't like this one. I also will give it a D. All right, next we have Vision Slap, a 3-cost inkable item with danger revealed. At the start of your turn, if an opposing character has damage, gain 1 lore, and it has trapped. Damage counters can't be removed. So this is the anti-amethyst card of the set, or anti-amber card, because they can't heal with Rapunzel. That means, I'm going to be honest, I don't think this card is very good. But I did play against it this past weekend, and it gained probably 6 or 7 lore against me because I had no item removal, and I just had a Maui that was in play with damage on it, and this thing just racked up lore turn after turn, and there wasn't much I could do about it. I mean, I still won the game, that's why, like, it just didn't do enough maybe, but for being a 3-cost item, it gained a lot of lore, so
It makes you hesitate.
it intrigues me a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, maybe there's some matchups that it is actually really good in. I don't know. I couldn't even heal my Maui because the popsicles don't work because of this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It gained a bunch of lore, and that wasn't the only game that I saw where it gained a bunch of lore for that person either. So
I played against...
I don't know.
I played against this card as well. And same thing. It racked up a handful of lore. And there wasn't anything I could do about it because I took my benches out. And I also took out the Rise of the Titans to fit in all of the new cards. So, yeah, I had, like, no way to get it off. And it scared me.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Maybe I'm going to give it a C+. I'll go up from a C because I think it's just a half grade away from being considerable.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a C minus just because I cannot believe that this card is actually good. So that's just
You're like that one streamer that we were watching where they got messed up by that new Anna.
And the Hercules.
And the
It was like, that
Hercules.
Hercules can't be good. And
Yeah.
then I just crushed him 2
Yeah,
games in a row.
No, it can't be good. It can't be good. But yeah, that's what this card is too. Makes this question. But all right, next we have our first of 2 locations. We have Hidden Cove, Tranquil Haven, inkable 1-drop, 6 willpower, move cost of 1, and characters get +1 strength and +1 willpower while here. I gave this one a D. I think although it's inkable and a 1 cost, it doesn't gain lore by itself. So it doesn't really pose too much of a threat. But the move cost being cheap and the ability makes it intriguing. But I still don't think it's worth... I don't know. Maybe it's a C, but I don't think it's better than a C by any means.
Yeah, I think locations have to have the passive ability of gaining lore in order to be good. At
Mm-hmm.
least that's how it feels like so far. Like, I think one of the reasons why the Pirates deck wasn't good in set 3 is because the one cost pirate,
Jolly Roger?
yeah, the Jolly Roger, that one just didn't gain any lore. So I don't know, you could have like 3 of those in play, but then they're just kind of redundant. Like you don't need more than one in play
Mm-hmm.
because like you're just gonna move all your pirates to that one location anyway. But if they could gain a lore, then they would actually threaten the opponent. But the locations that don't gain lore, I just don't think do enough.
Yeah. Which, speaking of which, our next one gains lore.
Yeah, Ursula's Garden is a 4 cost inkable location that has 7 willpower, a move cost of 2, it lowers for 1, and it has Abandon Hope. While you have an exerted character here, opposing characters get -1 lore. So this one is kind of interesting to me. I think it could be like a C plus because it has the passive ability gain lore. It has a decent amount of willpower, and I think its effect is actually like kind of good. Yeah, they'll just use their characters to challenge this, but if you're playing against another Emerald deck where they just have a bunch of Flins or Curse Merfolks,
Mm-hmm.
they can't challenge it because like all their characters are bad, and now their characters don't even threaten to quest. So this could be like a really good card in the mirror, I think.
I gave it a D. I had a hard time evaluating this card. I wanted to give it a C, but I ended up giving it a D. I think the move cost causes it to be kind of expensive, and it is still hard to get rid of being a 7 willpower opposed to a lot of the 6 ones that we're seeing. And I like that it, like you said, passively gains lore every turn, but I wish that the ability would be that they didn't have to be exerted or something. I don't know. Although I like that it is exerted character here because some of the locations that we're seeing, it specifies that the character has to, while your character quests while here, it does something, XYZ. And so this insinuates that it can either quest or challenge and be exerted either way.
Or
So.
sing a song.
Or sing a song. So you're not limited in that sense. So I almost wonder if I should bump it up to a C, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think if we were going to Chicago this weekend and it was set 4, then I would try to and we thought that Emerald decks were going to be really popular.
Mm-hmm.
I would try to convince you to put 1 or 2 of these into your deck, I think, because I don't know how another Emerald deck beats this card to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems impossible for them to get off the board, and if their characters aren't questing for 2, then they're just going to be so much slower than you.
Yeah, you're right. And even like Maui coming in, he can't get rid of it on the first try. So he has to spend 2 turns challenging this opposed to challenging your other characters. So it kind of is a distraction in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the move cost of it makes it too expensive and not realistic. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I can see it. That's why it's only a C to me.
That's a good point. I will consider your suggestion for Chicago, but it'll have to definitely be after a lot of testing with it on Pixelborn, I think. But we'll see. I mean, I'd be interested to see if anybody else is gonna. I guess we can figure out at the side events if people are playing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this seems like a card that most people wouldn't like at the beginning of the format just because it feels like it might not do enough against a lot of the field, particularly Ruby Sapphire. But yeah, like I said, if I thought Emerald decks were going to be really popular in Chicago, then I think this might be one of the best cards that an Emerald Steel deck could play against them. That also,
I'm intrigued.
Yeah, it's inkable, so yeah.
We'll have to
test it.
wait and see. Yeah, for sure. But with that being said, though, we are all done with our set review today. So how did you feel like it went?
It was good. the one thing that we didn't talk about that we mentioned on the last one is how the enchanteds for Emerald are still bangers. All the enchanteds in this set are just so good.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Our LGS has a Diablo in their case, and I hesitated. I almost just did it.
Yeah, I don't know how much he was selling it for, but if it was under 100, I think you should just did it.
It wasn't marked yet, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to check that one out. That's like one of the better cards in the set. So if it's on the lower end here, I think we should just snag it.
And it's one of those where the art is pretty sick too.
The art is badass.
I don't mean to sound greedy, but our Jasmine doesn't really wow me.
I like it. I like the colors on it. I
do.
think.
It looks darker in person.
Yeah.
I feel like it looks darker in person, but that Diablo is sick. I want it so bad.
Even though we don't talk about Bruno, is pretty sweet too. So yeah, the Emerald Enchanteds are just, I think they're all hits.
Yeah. My birthday's coming up. Not dropping any hints or anything, but
you have a month.
Anywho, we're gonna let you guys go, and we hope you enjoy the weekend. If you are listening to this and at Atlanta, come and find us. We will be there by the time that this episode drops. We will be on our flight, so yeah, come and seek us out, and good luck. If you aren't going to Atlanta, sorry about you. Just kidding. Hopefully you have something local that an LGS is putting on that you can go to too.
They might be streaming it. I don't know. So watch some of it.
And let's be real. In all reality, I'm eyeing the side events more. I understand that I'm probably not going to get very far in the main event, so I might get a couple rounds in and drop and do the side events. So you might not be missing out on too much there. But all right, well, have a good weekend, everyone, and we will talk to you next week where we finish up our set review and do Sapphire and Steel, and probably talk about Atlanta at some point. Maybe you'll get a 3-er.
She doesn't like Ruby, so she didn't mention Ruby, but we'll do Ruby as well.
Oh my gosh. Well, yeah, I don't like Ruby. All right, we got to get out of here.
All right. See you, everybody. Have a good weekend.
Bye.